If you like to read, if you like to think, if you like to see the world differently, grab yourself a book, give this show a listen. Purple Lit Nerd gonna show you what you're missing.
Hooray! Welcome to the Purple LitNerd Podcast for March the 17th, 2018. Happy St. Patrick's Day! Hi diddly hi! I am your host, the amazingly adorable Rebecca Thistle, podcasting to you live-ish from my kitchen/dining room table in my apartment, which I called Jeffrey Thistlework. Yay! It kind of strikes me as like ironic that it's St. Patrick's Day and I go, hi diddly hi, and then say I'm Rebecca Thistle. Like, I don't know. I'm just weird like that, I guess. So, I have to start the show with a couple of like disclaimery thingies. The first one is trigger warning. I have to issue a trigger warning because I know there are people who are sensitive to certain subjects. I'm one of those people. Unfortunately, I have the advantage of knowing what I'm talking about ahead of time. You don't. Well, maybe you do. I don't know. But, and maybe you're psychic. I don't really know. But, we're talking about The Handmaid's Tale, and this involves themes of rape and abuse and oppression of women. And it is really... it's a difficult book to read. It's a difficult book to talk about. And so if this is something that you don't think you can handle, I'm just letting you know right now, come back when I'm doing something else. Like, I really hope you go back into my archive and listen to some of my other shows. But, Handmaid's Tale, not going to be for you. Okay? All right. Secondly, I have to issue a spoiler alert because people are anal about this sort of thing. I'm generally not one of them. I have a friend who is, and I mean, bless her heart, carte blanche, bless her heart, but she's like, spoilers, don't spoil anything for me. And I'm like, okay, it only spoils it if you let it. So just because you know something's going to happen, like, seriously. Like, I knew how the 6th Harry Potter book was going to end. Didn't make it any easier to get through. Actually, it probably made it slightly more easy to get through, but that's not the point. It's still, oh my gosh, that book. I actually had a depressive episode after I finished the 6th Harry Potter book. It was horrific. Then again, something really traumatic happened to me shortly after I finished the 6th Harry Potter book, so... chicken or the egg, right? So, anyways, but specifically today, I'm going to be talking about the plot of the book, what little there is, and also how the book ties in with the TV series on Hulu, specifically the first season. Like, there's a second season that's coming out next month. It's not going to be that similar to the book because I'll explain in a second, but I don't intend on spoiling anything from the show, but I might accidentally, so just to be safe, spoiler alert. Right? Okay, now that's out of the way. Excuse me. There's not much of a plot to the book, okay? I'm not saying this as a negative criticism because the book is... It's an amazingly written book. It's probably like one of the most perfect examples of speculative dystopian fiction that I can come up with. I mean, I don't generally delve into speculative dystopian fiction, but, you know, The Handmaid's Tale, pretty good example of that. But that said, there's not much of a story. Offred is a handmaid, and she's talking about state-sanctioned rape in the hope of making a baby. She's basically a sex slave for the government. And she's raped monthly in a weird ritual called the ceremony. It's... I do believe that I talked about this in previous episodes, so I don't want to get into that right now. But that's basically what it is she talks about going shopping with her shopping partner, Glenn. She talks about the chauffeur. She talks about playing Scrabble with her commander. She talks about not getting pregnant month after month after month. She talks about her doctor offering to impregnate her. She talks about her shopping partner of Glenn being involved with Mayday. I mean, there's not much of a story. It's basically like she's sort of okay. Deep breath, pause. When I first started listening to the audiobook, which, by the way, I highly recommend. Claire Danes narrates the audiobook, or at least the one I got on Audible, and she does a spectacular job. Side note, nothing to do with anything. But when I first started listening to the audiobook, I didn't get it. I was like, what? Okay, she's talking and stuff, and then there's, every once in a while, there's a little bit of music that plays that's supposed to be some kind of transition, and I don't understand what's going on. Then I get to the end, and there's this sort of transcript from a symposium academic Q&A session about The Handmaid's Tale, set again in this fictional future post-Gilead. And ostensibly the book is structured because it's the transcription of some audio cassette tapes that were recovered by archaeologists or historians or whatever you want to call them that, Offred recorded after she was taken out of the commander's house. Spoiler alert, right? So there's not much of a story. It's just she's sort of talking about her last posting as a handmaid. She's talking about the things she learned at the Red Training Center. She talks about missing her daughter. She talks about missing her husband. She talks about her life, but there's not a story to it. It's a story, but it's basically like if I were to sit down and tell you the story of the past few months of my life, yeah, there's some little high jinkery, or not even the last few months of my life. Like if I were to tell you the story of the 7 months I lived downtown in Abilene, there really wouldn't be much to tell about that. It would be a very boring story. Now, the novel doesn't cover 7 months, of course. I think it covers about a year or so. But that's the point. It's just her talking about her experience in her last posting. That's it. So, that being said, the TV series hits all the points in there. The TV series gets everything from the novel. Everything in the novel is in the TV series. What I love about the show, it's really hard for me to get through. I got through it. It took me almost a year because I couldn't binge it. It's really hard to binge. But it took me almost a year, and then now I'm almost done going through it a second time. But it's really good. You get to see more of what is not in the book. For example, what happened to Luke, Offred's husband. They reveal Offred's real name, which is June. I think I mentioned that before. I don't know. Because we never know Offred's real name in the book itself. But for 30 some odd years, speculation by, people reading and rereading and reading in between the lines, lit nerds like me, came up with, her name must be June because reasons. That's kind of a convoluted thing to try and explain, but it makes sense. And actually, apparently, Atwood went, well, that wasn't really what I was thinking, but yeah, okay, June. And so that's why in the series we learn that her name is June. We learn about Nick the chauffeur, his backstory. We learn a little bit more about the marriage between Serena Joy and Commander Waterford before the establishment of the Republic of Gilead. We see more of who the other handmaids really are. There's this really interesting scene, and I forget which episode it is, but June's shopping partner, Offglen, Alma, has gotten into trouble for being a lesbian and having an affair with a Martha. Oh my God. And so she has been taken away from her posting and replaced with somebody else. And I can't remember if they ever say that somebody else's real name. But anyways, the new Offglen, June's kind of trying to, feel her out and figure out if she's a pious little shit. Basically, her words. Turns out she's not a pious little shit, but she's not gonna complain. Like, there's a really powerful moment where she pulls June aside and she's like, look, you're not gonna screw this up for me, because before all this happened, I was living on the streets. I was a crack whore, and now I've got a roof over my head and people who treat me well. And so that's like a perspective you go, whoa, okay, hadn't really thought of that, but alrighty then. So I like that. I like more perspectives. We get a small glimpse into other parts of the world. There's a delegation from Mexico that comes in one episode to try and work out a trade deal with Gilead, and that was a crazy episode. But we get to see a little glimpse as to, this is not, the problems with fertility and birth rates is not isolated to the United States or the former United States, now the Republic of Gilead in this fictional universe. And we understand how oftentimes in desperation and necessity, everyone will turn a blind eye to suffering. It's like I said, it's a really hard show to get through. But I like how it builds on it. And so, side note, or interestingly, I guess, I don't even know where this fits into my outline. I've got an outline and I'm not even hardly following it. But Atwood serves as a consulting producer for the show. I do believe that I read somewhere that she actually helps, or she sits in with the writers of the show. I don't know if she actually gets a writing credit, but I think I read somewhere that she does sit in with the writers.